Good evening. MA Philosophy, MAPY-MPYE-001, Block number 1, Unit number 3, Figure, Mood, and the Possible Types of Syllogism. Objectives. This unit proposes to introduce a very interesting aspect of syllogism, biz figures and moods. Through a study of figures and moods, you will be in a position to gain an insight into the intricacies of categorical syllogism. This is the main objective of this unit. Second objective is to introduce you to the abridged and extended versions of syllogism. Another equally important objective is to bring out the feature of dilemma, which is a sort of pseudo syllogism that you will be in a position to contrast a genuine argument like syllogism with a pseudo arguments. Thereby, another objective is also served. Your acumen to evaluate the logical significance is further sharpened. This is the most invaluable gift of logic. Introduction. Arguments are Arguments are of complex nature. It is not possible to bring all arguments, even arguments of one class, under a common head. A detailed analysis of syllogism reveals the hidden complexities of the same. Such a study consists in the discussion of the structure of syllogism, which lead to figures and moods. A clear understanding of the structure of syllogism exposes the wealth of syllogistic argument. As usual, the premises have to be taken as true, whether or not they are factually true. Moods of categorical syllogism. In the previous unit, a brief reference was made to what is known as mood. It is not possible to fully appreciate the role played by moods in the study of syllogism without prior discussion of what is known as figure. Figure and mood together determine the structure of syllogism. An appraisal of the significance of structure in deductive inference is in general, and syllogism in particular is made much easier when we deal with figures and moods of syllogism. An analysis of the structure of argument in deductive inference is a prerequisite to the classification of arguments into good valid and bad invalid. Since the very function of logic is to distinguish arguments in the aforesaid manner, a study of figure and mood occupies an important position in our study of syllogism. In order to simplify the task, let us uh, let us let us state the arguments in what is called a standard form. Accordingly, the major premise is stated first, followed by the minor premise, and ending with the conclusion. The following example illustrates what standard form means. Number one, all humans are mortal. Joseph is a human, so Joseph is a mortal. Although arguments in ordinary language appear in several forms, it is not at all difficult to restate them in standard form. First, we identify the conclusion, which is to be placed in the final position. Whichever premise contains the predicate terms of the conclusion automatically occupies the first place, because the major premise should be stated first. K. Kimmerling 2010. We notice that mortal is the predicate of the conclusion, which appears in the first place in the argument, followed by the minor premise. Therefore, this type of arrangement subscribes to standard form. The mode of a syllogism. As mentioned earlier, there are four types of categorical proposition: universal affirmative A, universal negative E, particular affirmative I, and particular or negative O. Since a syllogistic argument consists of three categorical propositions. They may occur in any order in the arguments. What is more interesting is the fact that the very same type of proposition may occur thrice. There is no restriction on the number of occasions on which a particular type of propositions occur in an argument. For example, all three propositions in an argument may be A only, or they may be I only. Briefly said, the mood of a syllogism is simply a combination of categorical prepositions A, E, I, or O, which is the argument comprises of. Suppose that only O proposition comprises of an argument, then the mood of the argument is said to be O, triple O. Similarly, a syllogistic argument with a mood of OAO has an O proposition as its major premise, and A proposition as its minor premise, and another O proposition as its conclusion, and EIO has an E as its major premise, and an I as the minor premise, and an O as the conclusion, etc. Let us consider another example. 2A. All rocks are hard things. E. No rocks are liquid. I. Some liquid things are not hard. The mood of this argument is AEI. This shows that every letter states symbolically the quantity and quality of propositions, and every letter occurs in the very same order in which the propositions occur in the argument. Therefore, the order in which the three letters occur specifies the mood of the syllogism. Consider the following syllogistic argument. E. Number 3. E. No woman named Deepthi are outer Iceland. Yepsi women. A. All outer Iceland Yepsi women are weavers of the baskets. O. So some weavers of the baskets are not women named Deepthi. In the above syllogism and minor term, subject of the conclusion is weavers of the baskets. The major term, predicate of the conclusion, is woman named Deepthi, and the middle term is outer Iceland Yepsi women. Therefore, the first premise is the major, second is the minor, and the third is the conclusion. The structure of these argument is considered of the purpose of illustration while symbolizing the prepositions. Let us use the first letter of the term. The letter which appears in the middle stands for the quality and quantity of prepositions. Number first, major premise. All H are M, HAM, J is H, JAH. So J is M, JAM. Second, all R are H, RAH. No R are L, REL. So some L are not H. So LOH. 3. Major premise. No W is Y, WEY. Minor premise. All Y is B, WAB. Conclusion. Some B is not W. So BOW. One question remains to be answered. How many moods can be listed? For the time being, let us restrict ourselves to an incomplete answer. Accordingly, we can list 64 moods. At this stage, let us not restrict ourselves to valid moods. There is no need to list all these 64 moods, but what is needed is to know how we arrive at this figure, because the number is not fixed arbitrarily. There are 4 kinds of propositions which have to take 3 positions in such a manner that any propositions can occur in any one of the 4 different ways: 0, 1, 2, and 3. When we compute all possible arrangements, we arrive at 64. There are two important aspects. First, we have discovered a certain number of structures in which syllogistic arguments can be constructed. And secondly, which we notice later, not all structures to which arguments subscribe are valid. It is in this sense that the logical status of an argument is determined by the structure of that particular argument. 3.3 Figures of the syllogism. It is easy to understand the meaning and significance of figure. The figure of a syllogism is determined by the position of middle term. We have said that the middle term appears both in the major and in the minor premises. Therefore, its possible positions in premises result in four different configurations. A schematic representation is preferable to verbal description. Figure 1, MP, SM, so SP. Figure 2, PM, SM, so SP. Figure 3, MP, MS, so SP. Figure 4, PM, MS, so SP. For this scheme, it is clear that neither P nor C, neither P nor S determines the figure of syllogism. History has recorded that Aristotle accepted only the first three figures. The origin of the fourth figure is disputed. While Quine said that Theo, while Quine said that Theophrastus, a student of Aristotle, invented the fourth figure. Stabbing said that it was Galen who invented the fourth figure. This dispute is not very significant. What Aristotle say on the first figure is significant. Aristotle regarded the first figure was most scientific. It is likely that by scientific he meant satisfactory. One of the reasons which Aristotle has adduced in defense of his thesis is what the nature of laws of mathematics and physical sciences suggest. According to him, these sciences establish laws in the form of the first figure. Second reason is that a reasoned conclusion of a reasoned fact is generally found. According to Aristotle, in the first figure, Aristotle believed that only universal affirmative conclusion can provide complete knowledge, and universal affirmative conclusion is possible only in the first figure. Aristotle quotes the fundamental principle of syllogism. One kind of syllogism serves to prove that A inheres in C by showing that A inheres in B and B in C. This principle can be expressed in this form: minor A inheres in B, B major B inheres in C, so A inheres in C. Evidently, this argument satisfies the transitive relation. This is made clear with the help of this diagram. A बड़ा गोला B उससे बड़ा गोला C. Let us consider four examples which correspond to four figures. Number 1, MP, major premise: all artists are poets. AAP, minor premise: SM, all musicians are artists. MAA, conclusion: all musicians are poets. MAP. Second, SP, PM, major premise: all saints are pious. SAP. SM, minor premise: no criminals are pious. CEP, conclusion: so no criminals are saints. CES. SP. 3, MP, major premise: all great works are worthy of study. GAW. Minor premise: MS, all great works are epics. GAE. Conclusion: some epics are worthy of study. EIW. SP. 4, PM, major premise: no soldiers are traitors. SET. MS, minor premise: all traitors are sinners. TAS. Conclusion: So some sinners are not soldiers. SOS. SP. We will consider figures in conjunction with moods. Then only knowledge of the figure of syllogism permits us to commute the total number of possible moods. Mood is determined by quality and quantity of prepositions, which constitute syllogism. Since there are four figures in all 256 ways of arranging categorical propositions is possible. These are exactly what we mean by moods. However, out of 256, 245 moods can be shown to be invalid by applying the rules and corollaries. So we have only 11 valid moods. Even this is not sufficient to have a clear picture. There is no figure in which all 11 moods are valid. Within the framework of traditional logic, in any given figure, only 6 moods are valid. They are as follows. Number 1, AAA, AAI, EAE, EAO, EIO, and AII. Second, AEE, AEO, EAE, EAO, EIO, and AOO. Third, AAI, AII, IAI, EAO, EIO, and OAO. 4. AAI, IAI, AEE, AEO, EAO, and EIO. In all these cases, first letter stands for the major premise, second for the minor, and third for the conclusion. Moods are represented above in three ways. Moods in italics and bold form are called strengthened moods, and moods in mere italics are called weakened moods. All other moods are represented in normal form. It is important to know the difference between the first two types. When the laws of syllogism permit two universal premises to yield logically only particular conclusion, then such moods are called strengthened moods. On the other hand, if we deduce particular conclusion from two universal premises, even when the laws of syllogism permit two universal premises to yield logically a universal conclusion, then such moods are called weakened moods. In this scheme, we notice that EIO is valid in all the figures. Interestingly, IEO is invalid in all the figures. The only difference between EIO and IEO is that the minor and the major premises are only transposed, which clearly shows that the position of premises, which is a part of the structure, determines the validity of argument. So, though EIO is valid is more than one figure, it is one mood in one figure and some other in another figure. Likewise, AEE is valid in the second and the fourth figure, but it is one mood in the second figure and the different mood in the fourth figure. Since Aristotle argued that the first figure is the perfect figure, he felt the need to transmute all valid arguments in second and third figures to first figure, so that if the uh, transmuted mood is valid in uh, transmuted mood is valid in one figure, then the corresponding mood in any figure other than the first is also valid. Transmutation from fourth figure to the first figure must have been evolved by the inventor of the former. Reduction is the tool. Reduction is Reduction is the tool to test the validity of arguments. In the 13th century, one logician by name Pope John XXI devised a technique to remember the method of reducing arguments from other figures to the first figure. This technique is known as mnemonic verses. Accordingly, each mood excluding weekend's mood was given a special name. 1. AAA Barbara, EAE Celerant, AII, the DARII, EIO, Ferio, FERIO. Second figure, EAE, CECARE. Second, AEE, CAMESTRES. Figure number 3, AAI, DARAPTI, Darapti. IAI, DISAMIS. AII, DATISI. EAO, FELAPTON. OAO, BOCARDO. EIO, FERISON. Figure AAI, BRAMANTIP. AEE, CEMENES. EIO, FESTINO. AOO, BAROCO. IAI, DIMARIS. EAO, FESAPO. EIO, FRESISON. The method is like this: if the names begin with C, then the syllogism has to be reduced to the first figure, which begins with the C. For example, CESARE, a syllogism of the second figure, has to be reduced to CELARENT, celerant. Other consonants of the name have also their significance. S, like in CESARE, signifies that the preceding E needs to undergo simple conversion. P signifies that the preceding proposition has to be converted by limitation. T signifies that the order of the premises has to be changed. ST indicates that two operations with simple conversion and transposition of the proposition represented by the preceding vowel are required to be carried out. Barocco and Bocardo, Bocardo, are reduced in a different manner. O propositions in both the moods have to be obverted first and then follow the relevant path to effect deduction. However, the situation in modern logic is very different. The logicians proved that from universal propositions alone, particular propositions cannot be derived, and vice versa. Accordingly, both strengthened and weakened mood became invalid. Thus, in a new scheme, a number of valid moods reduces to 15. In incomplete syllogism and compound syllogism. Number 1, enthymeme. Enthymeme is called an incomplete syllogism in which one or the other proposition is not stated explicitly. As a matter of fact, such an incomplete syllogism is closer to the way we generally argue in everyday life. If standard form is the criterion, then it is not logically valid unless what is implicitly implicitly understood is taken into consideration. That is, it must be formally completed. Example 1: you have hurt your neighbor, therefore you have sinned against God. Major premise implicitly understood: those who hurt their neighbors sin against God. Second, those who hurt their neighbors sin against God. Therefore, you have sinned against God. Minor premise implicitly understood. You have hurt your neighbor. You have hurt your neighbor. Three, those who hurt their neighbor sin against God. And you have hurt your neighbor. Conclusion implicitly understood. Therefore, you have sinned against God. When the major premise is implicitly understood, enthymeme is regarded as the first order enthymeme. When the minor premise is implicitly understood, enthymeme is regarded as the second order enthymeme. When the conclusion is implicitly understood, enthymeme is regarded as the third order enthymeme. A question may arise in this context: if two prepositions are adequate to convey the information, where is the need to have full-fledged syllogism? This question can be answered in two ways: when we deal with learned or well-informed persons, or with ourselves. And an enthymeme will surely serve the purpose. A full-fledged syllogism is needed when we have to educate not so well informed, if not ill-informed persons. We should not fail to notice close similarity between enthymeme and Swarthanuman and Pararthanuman, inference for self and inference for others. The question can be answered in this way also. Syllogism is formal and enthymeme is informal. Choice is subjective. Two, sto- two, two sorites. If an argument consists of three or more than three premises, then such an argument is called sorites. It is also called polysyllogism. There are two kinds of sorites: Ari- Aristotelian sorites and Goclenian sorites. The primary rules which govern sorites are the rules of the categorical syllogism only. Let us begin with the structure of sorites. In Aristotelian sorites, the first premise is minor, and the later premise the last premise is major. In consecutive premise, M is predicate in the first premise and in the next premise subject. In stories, there are two or more than two conclusions which are implicit. Every such hidden conclusion functions as the premise. Therefore, a sorites consists of at least three syllogistic arguments, and hence it consists of a chain of syllogisms which are interrelated. In order to arrive at the final conclusion, these hidden conclusions also must be reckoned. Consider this example: premises 1, all A are B; second, all B are C; third, all C are D. Hidden conclusions: A and B. So all A are C; 3, all C are D; 4, all D are E. So all A are E; B, all A are D; all D are E. It is easy to understand this structure from 1 and 2 we have derived A. This is hidden because at no point of time is this expressed. When this is conjoined with 3, A becomes a premise. So it is the case with B. This shows that every hidden conclusion is in fact the premise of next argument. In this argument, A and B are hidden conclusions which become premises at subsequent stages. In Aristotelian stories, the subject of the first premise is also the subject of the conclusion, and the predicate of the last premise is also the predicate of the conclusion. In the set of hidden conclusions, also the same pattern can be noticed. This pattern shows that in Aristotelian stories, the first Aristotelian sorites, the first premise is the minor and the last premise is the major. Let us consider the rules of Aristotelian sorites. 1, only major premise, last premise can be negative. Second, only minor premise, first premise can be particular. In Goclenian sorites, the order is reversed. Consider this example: premises, hidden conclusions A and B. Number 1, all A are B. Number 2, all C are A. Number 3, all D are C. Number A, all C are B. Number 3, all D are C. Number B, all D are B. Number 4, all E are D. All E are D. So all E are B. In this kind, the predicate of the conclusion is the predicate of the first premise. Therefore, the first premise is major. the subject of the conclusion is the subject of the last premise. Therefore, the last premise is the minor. The rules of this kind are as follows. Number one, only the first premise major can be negative. The second, only the last premise minor can be particular. One point should become clear at this stage. One kind of source is the reversal of the order. If we disregard the positions of premises, then the difference between these two kinds becomes insignificant. Dilemma. The dilemma consists of three propositions of which two constitute premises and third one is of conclusion. One of the premises is a conjunction of two hypothetical propositions and the other one is disjunctive. The conclusion is either disjunctive or simple. Since the dilemma consists of two hypothetical propositions conjoined by the word and, it is possible that two different propositions are found in place of antecedents and two different propositions are found in place of consequence, but it is not necessary that it should be so. It is likely that both propositions have a common consequent. If such consequent becomes the conclusion, then the conclusion is a simple proposition. Dilemma: constructive and destructive. Constructive, simple, complex. Destructive, simple, complex. Has a structure similar to that of P2 of CDD. Now we can make a list of common features of different kinds of dilemma. Dilemma common features. Number one, constructive. Number two, different antecedents. Number second, destructive, different consequence. Number three, complex, disjunctive conclusion. Number four, simple conclusion. 3.6, avoiding dilemma. Use of dilemma is restricted. Use of dilemma is restricted to some situations when neither unconditional affirmation of antecedents nor unconditional denial of consequent is possible. Logician may use this route. It indicates either ignorance or shrewdness. When we face dilemma, we only try to avoid but not to refute. These are three different ways in which we can try to avoid dilemma. All these ways only reflect a escapist tendency. Only an escapist tries to avoid a problematic situation. Therefore, in logic they do not carry much weight. Number one, escaping between the two horns of dilemma. Two consequence mentioned may be incomplete. If it is possible to show that they are incomplete, then we can avoid facing dilemma. This is what is known as escaping between the horns of dilemma. It should be noted that even when third consequent is suggested, it does not mean that this new consequent is actually true. In other words, the new consequent also is questionable. Second, taking the dilemma by horns. In this method of avoiding dilemma, attempts are made to contradict the hypothetical propositions which are conjoined. A hypothetical proposition is contradicted when antecedent and negation of consequent are accepted. However, in this particular case, it is not attempted at all. Moreover, since the major premise is a conjunction of two hypothetical propositions, the method of refutation is more complex. The negation of conjunction will be introduced at a later stage. For the time being, it is enough to know that in this particular instance there is no such attempt. 3. Rebuttal of dilemma. It appears to be the contradiction of dilemma, but in reality it is not. In all these cases, the dilemma becomes a potent weapon to mislead the opponent in debate. Therefore, none of these methods uh, amounts to the contradiction of opponent's view. We will consider examples of four kinds which can be used to illustrate these methods. First, complex constructive dilemma (CCD). P1. If any government wages war to acquire wealth, then it becomes a rogue government, and if it wages war to expand its territory, then it S becomes colonial. If any government wages number one, complex constructive dilemma (CCD). P1. If any government wages war to acquire wealth, then it becomes a QR, rogue government, and if it wages war to expand its territory, then it S becomes colonial. P2. P2 PR. Any government wages war either to acquire wealth or to expand its territory. QS. Q. It becomes a rogue government or colonial. Second, simple constructive dilemma SCD. PQ. P1. If taxes are reduced to gather votes, then the government loses revenue. R. And if taxes are reduced in order to simplify taxation, then the Q, government loses revenue. P2. Taxes are reduced either P2. Taxes are reduced either to garner votes or to simplify taxation. Q. So the government loses its revenue. 3. Complex destructive dilemma CDD. PQ. P1. If the nation wages war, then there will be no problem of R. Unemployment, and if the nation does not uh, revise her industrial policy S, then it will lead to revolution. P2. Not Q, not S. Not Q, not S. P2. The problem of unemployment remains unsolved, or there will not be any revolution. Not P, not R. Q. So the nation does not wage war, or the nation will revise her industrial policy. 4. Simple destructive dilemma SDD. PQ. P1. If you are in the habit of getting up early, then you are theist. PR. And if you are in the habit of getting up early, then you are a labor. Not Q, not R. P2. You are not a theist, or you are not a laborer. Not P. Q. So you are in the habit of getting up early. The first way of avoiding the dilemma, escaping between the horns of dilemma, can be illustrated using one CCD. It is possible to argue that when the government wages war, the motive is neither to acquire wealth nor to expand its territory, in which case the government is neither rogue nor colonial. The motive may be to spread its official religion or personal vendetta, or it may be to protect its interest. If the last one is the motive, then it becomes difficult to find fault with such government. Any one of the proposed alternative or all alternative to disjuncts may be false. There is no way of deciding what the situation is. The reader can select remaining examples to illustrate this method. Likewise, consider fourth argument to illustrate the second method. I may concede that a person gets up early only because he wants to maintain health. So the purpose is not to worship God, nor is he a laborer. Again this is also an assumption. Rebutting of dilemma requires a different type of example. Consider this one. Number one, PQ. P is equal to if the teacher is a disciplinarian, then he is unpopular among students, and PR, if he is not a disciplinarian, then his bosses do not like him. PQ, P2, teacher is a disciplinarian or he is not a disciplinarian. QVR, Q is equal to teacher is unpopular among students or his bosses do not like him. A witty teacher may respond in this way. Second, PQ, P1, if the teacher is not a disciplinarian, then he is popular among students. PR, and if he is a disciplinarian, then his bosses will like him. PP, P2, teacher is not a disciplinarian or he is a disciplinarian. Q is so teacher is, QR, teacher is popular among students or his bosses will like him. Only a student of logic Only a student of logic discovers that these conclusions of I and conclusions of first and second are not contradictory. You will learn about it in the forthcoming units in the strict sense of the term. Hence, there is really no rebuttal. Further, the dilemma which an individual faces in day-to-day life is very different. For example, moral dilemma has nothing to do with the kinds of dilemma which we have discussed so far, since the dilemma is a medley of both types of conditional propositions as a hypothetical and disjunctive. It should follow the basic rules of hypothetical and disjunctive syllogism. It should affirm disjunctively the antecedents in the minor or deny disjunctively the consequence in the minor. The dilemma is powerful if in the major there is a strong cause effect relationship between the antecedent and the consequent, and in the minor and minor the alternatives are exhaustive and mutually exclusive. Again, the former is debatable. Let us sum up. The structure of syllogism is determined by figures and moods. The position of the middle term determines the figure to which syllogism belongs. There are 4 figures and 11 valid moods. Strengthened and weakened moods are not valid according to modern logic. The dilemma is a shrewd way of getting out of trouble, is escaping between the horns of dilemma. Taking the dilemma by horns and rebuttal of dilemma are the ways of avoiding dilemma. Dilemma is not a sound logical way of arguing. Thank you.